Welcome to this edition of Go Vote Omaha, presented by the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha. I'm Rachel Gibson, Vice President of Action for the League of Women Voters of Nebraska, and your host for today's program. Today we're talking to our friend from Coalition for a Strong Nebraska about an interim study introduced by Speaker Arch studying public engagement with the legislature. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization and does not endorse political candidates or parties. The League does, however, take positions on issues. Our purpose is to empower voters and defend democracy. Go Vote Omaha primarily focuses on policy issues, and as a result of our discussions, we hope you will feel ready to make informed decisions at election time. So we're going to go ahead and jump in here. The past legislative session was full of passion and vigor, and hundreds gathered in committee hearing rooms and in the rotunda and the balcony at the legislature. The process seemed a bit confusing at times and chaotic and a little intimidating to members of the public. So this past session, Speaker Arch has noticed an increase in inconsistency and inefficiency. And due to that, has introduced a legislative resolution that Coalition for a Strong Nebraska has been working with. It's to examine the issues around the public and suggest potential changes to make things more accessible. So joining us today is Laurie Ponce, Director of Coalition for a Strong Nebraska, who worked in part on this resolution with Speaker Arch. Thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Sure, thanks for having me.
So to begin with, can you tell us just a little bit about Coalition for a Strong Nebraska and the type of work you do?
Sure, the Coalition for a Strong Nebraska is a nonprofit organization that works to lift up other nonprofits, to teach them how to have a voice in the legislature and to lift each other up and be heard by their senators, and giving them skills and teachings that will help them become advocates.
And I know from working with the League that we always love working with Coalition for a Strong
Good.
Nebraska. You all do great educational works and connect folks. You have members all across the state. I mean,
Yes.
lots and lots of groups of different advocacy types.
Yes, there are a lot of nonprofits throughout the state, in every part of the state, who have firsthand knowledge about how the conditions for people experiencing hardships are having, and if the nonprofits don't speak up for some of those populations, they don't have a voice. So we're helping them lift those people up.
Yeah. Well, and especially in Nebraska, because we have a kind of a unique system in our state government, in that we have a unicameral structure, which has a really unique history and way that the public can be involved with the legislative process. So can you tell us a bit about kind of how the Nebraska legislature works in the history of that?
Sure, we're the only nonpartisan one-house legislature in America. A lot of people from other states think it's really strange. They wonder how we get anything done, and I think we wonder about the same about two-house partisan legislatures. It's really amazing, and except for the past few years, it's been an incredible process to watch how laws get made, very transparent and collaborative. And it used to be that you didn't hear much about someone's political party. It's just whether someone was straightforward and truthful, but that's changed a little bit. But every single bill that is introduced gets a hearing, a public hearing, and by and large the bills are worked on under a public microscope. So it's something we're really lucky to have in Nebraska.
I like our unicameral.
I love our unicameral. Yep.
But that brings up a good point, and kind of what brings us here today is this. The past few years have been a bit contentious, and particularly with the engagement that the public has in our legislature. Speaker Arch has worked on this survey to get information from folks who are advocates and people who come give their 2 cents. Can you tell us a little bit about how this was prompted, the study was prompted, what was the impetus, what's the hope to get out of it?
Sure. Well, we brought the resolution to Senator Arch. He knew and was dealing with different complaints about people coming to the Capitol, not being able to testify, not understanding how hearings work, not getting on the testifiers' sign-in sheet, not getting on the committee statement. It just by and large, people didn't feel heard. And this was true all around the political spectrum. So we thought it would be a good idea to embrace that, the fact that that happened, and ask people how they felt about it, and so that Nebraskans could feel heard. And Speaker Arch ultimately agreed and threw himself into the study and took it very seriously. Sent out a couple of surveys that I hope everyone had a chance to answer about what they experienced and then what they thought could be done to improve the engagement with the legislature.
Yeah, well, and we thank you for taking that to Speaker Arch, because we love to be able to share what the process is. What types of questions did this survey ask?
They were great, and I really commend his staff, who weren't real happy with me at first, but they did an incredible job of just laying it out and embracing the fact that people had a hard time. So they just asked, what happened to you negatively in your interactions with the legislature? And we were very blunt. He sent the survey to some bigger organizations, including the coalition, and we sent it out to all of our members. And I think he received a lot of the same kinds of answers. Senators weren't being responsive to their constituents, people not being heard at committee hearings, the uncertainty of the process, and there were protests, as you recall, in the chamber. That had really never happened before, not in my experience, and I worked with the legislature for more than 20 years. That had never happened, and so there was a lot of uncertainty. A couple people were arrested, and we just thought, okay, let's put it all out there and make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, it's so wonderful that he was open and responsive to that.
Yes.
Yeah. So how many, if you have a sense of it, how many folks responded to this call for feedback? What kind of was the analysis from that?
Just on our side, we sent out to everyone on our mailing list, and there were maybe 150 people who responded, and but I'm not sure about the other organizations who they reached out to, but we have a big mailing list, and so I think people at least had a couple of opportunities to fill out a survey.
Mm-hmm. Have you gotten any sense of the process since then? Have you had an opportunity to speak with Speaker Arch and his staff and what the results have looked like? Do you have any sense of what was the feedback?
The feedback was that just please make things consistent. Mm-hmm. It would be great if committee hearings could be run the same uniformly among the different committees and the chairs. Right now they have a lot of autonomy and can run them however they choose, and that made for a difficult process last session. And a lot of the senators are newer. The committee chairs are new. With term limits, we have a lot of turnover, and chairs don't have a long time to learn how to be a chair and how to run a committee. So it's different among the committees, and that's not really a very good thing as far as public engagement is concerned. A lot of people complained about their senators not being responsive to them, not coming out when they sent notes in to say, will you come and talk to me, I'm a constituent, or trying to get in touch with their offices. Some senators didn't want to hear what their constituents had to say, which is really a bizarre thing. Mm-hmm. And we mentioned that in the surveys. This is a big deal, although we know you can't probably do anything about it. We want you to know that this is something that people talked about. And he responded to that and said that there really isn't anything he can do. He can promote leadership and how to be good representatives, but that's really up to the people to deal with at home at the ballot box, which is very true. And you have to make sure if your senator mistreats you or doesn't want to connect with you when you go to Lincoln to talk to him, that's something important that you need to let the public know for the next election.
Yeah. I want to talk more about the public and how they can be involved in a variety of ways, but I want to take a little bit of a scenic turnout if you're open to it. Just to kind of give people a sense of what this looks like, how does the committee process work? How do the people in charge get elected? How the rules run in the legislature?
Sure. Well, every 2 years they have elections for committee chairs. There are 14 standing committees and the exec board and the speaker, but there are 14 standing committees. Every 2 years they hold elections, and senators just nominate themselves to be chair, and the senators vote by secret ballot. There's been a rule suggestion over the past few years to change the secret ballot to open ballot, but it hasn't passed yet, so we'll see what happens. But right now they vote secret ballot for whoever they want to have chair, and it's really old-fashioned. They're up front with a dry erase board. Somebody reads the little slips of paper and they mark the numbers of votes that they got, and that's how they elect chairs. That doesn't really have anything to do with experience or subject matter. It's just who wants to be chair, right. And it's really run by popularity or right now by political standings. So that's unfortunate.
So then once someone is a chair, is that something that they stay that chair until they're no longer in the body, or is it really every 2 years?
It's every 2 years.
Okay, interesting.
When term limits weren't in, senators stayed in chairmanships for years. And once you were a chair of a committee, if you wanted to stay chair, that's pretty much, it was a given that you would get to stay chair. There weren't many challenges, but they're very contested, and right now there are no Democrats who are committee chairs. Oh, well, there's one, I'm sorry. Senator McKinney is chair of Urban Affairs. Oh, and so is Senator Wayne for Judiciary. I shouldn't have said that. So, but yeah, it's contentious and based on politics.
Yeah. So I want to thank you. That's helpful to have that context of how these committees exist. Shifting back to the public piece. So can you talk a little bit about previously what this has looked like as far as the public going and giving comment or letting their senator know what they think, and then we'll talk a little bit about where we're headed next. But in the past, how has the public engaged? It's
been very open, and usually with most bills, there isn't a problem with everyone getting to testify. Most bills aren't that controversial. Now, through the years, there have been controversial bills. I was legal counsel for Natural Resources Committee, and we had hearings on pipeline when the oil pipeline was a big thing. We had hearings throughout the state. And no matter where we went, whether it was at the Capitol or it was in Ogallala, we stayed until the very last person testified. And those could be some very, very long hearings into the night. But we stayed. And I think that was true with all the chairs. When there was a big issue up and there were a lot of people there, at least the chair would stay to hear all of the testimony. And I guess there are contentious bills that were introduced last year that caused several hearings to be very long, and they didn't stay till the end, and that's where the problem came. But historically, it's never been an issue. If you show up and you'd say you want to testify, it's that easy. They tell you, okay, come up and testify. Yeah. So
in looking at, if you were to wave your magic wand and say, this is how what kind of rules should exist as far as engaging the public? What are some of the things you would say would be the best way to go about this?
For the public too. I think it's really important, and I want to emphasize that no matter what's going on in the legislature, the contentiousness, the outlandish, the more outlandish the bills are, the ruder your senator might be to you. It's important, very, very important, to no matter what, respect the institution and still respect the senators, because we want to treat them in the way that we want to be treated, in respect of this institution that served Nebraska so well for so many years. We don't want it threatened, our one house nonpartisan body. So it's important that we show that respect to the institution and to our representatives, even if they don't show it back, because we have to take the high road and model behavior that we want them to show. So it's important for us to maintain the behavior that we hope that they have. Hearings don't have to be a big deal, even if they are contentious. You can have time for everyone to testify. I think one of Speaker Arch's ideas is to have an hour of proponents and then have an hour of opponents, to make it a rule that if there's a big hearing, you make sure you hear both sides evenly.
Oh, so you would go flip back and forth. It wouldn't be all 3 hours of proponents, 3 hours of vote. It would be one.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
And so that, as you know, proponents always go first, then opponents, and then neutral. So if you're an opponent of a bill and it's getting late, you can be there all day and not get to testify. So I think that's one of his ideas for making them more fair.
Do you know if there's any talk about providing other ways to give feedback? I mean, right now there is an online portal process, but from my understanding, it's mixed use based on the senator, what they really go in there and look at the comments. Is there any talk of Zoom testimony or taking comment in some other way?
We've been talking about that for a few years, and something we've been promoting. I think it's something that will come eventually once the legislature and the speaker and the clerk decide the best way to do that. That would make sure that it's functional and affordable. And I think we're getting there, but we're not there yet. There's talk about making the portal work a little better for the public. And I'm not sure what they're all working on, but there were significant comments about that. And it's a work in progress. So we just have to be a little more, I know a lot of other states allow Zoom testimony or allow ways for people to sign up that they're going to come and testify. And so all those ideas were presented to the speaker, and I know that they are taking them seriously.
So it's on their radar.
It is definitely on the clerk of the legislature's radar, who is looking to make some technological changes or updates, but I'm not sure what those are yet.
Right. That's, as long as it's on the radar, that's a good place to at least start from.
Right.
So when we're talking about the public, sometimes we hear from people from working in the league and encouraging people to reach out to their senators that they feel like their voice doesn't matter. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on that and how to make it matter, how to engage with their senators?
Right. I think people have been doing very well historically, and the senators have been doing very well. I've worked for different senators where one person from their district comes in and says, I have a problem with this. I'm not anyone important. I'm just wanted to tell you there's this issue, and here's how I think you can fix it. And there have been those instances when those people have prompted a change in the law. So I know for a fact that one person with a good idea can affect change. And I believe that that is still true. It's hard to tell that when you're in the midst of controversy and emotional issues like we've been having the last couple of years, and that we're going to have again in 2024. But that is still possible. There are a lot of other issues, and senators in general are ready to listen to constituents. I think just not on the topics that were the hot points for last session and upcoming session. But I know that it's important just to keep trying, keep reaching out to your senator, call their office, ask to speak with their legislative aide. It's still a process that's open like that. Mm-hmm. Just do your best and be polite and know that they're getting a lot of different calls about a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm. Is there any value to contacting senators outside of your own? Is that useful context for other senators?
I know some senators do respond to all calls, mm-hmm. or have their offices track every call that they get for or against a bill. And there are some senators who don't track if they're not from the district that they represent. So it just depends on the senator, mm-hmm. but certainly they're going to notice volume. Mm-hmm. Not robocalls though. They don't like robocalls.
We've heard that too.
Yeah.
The form emails, no thank you.
No, staff hate that kind of thing. And especially staff nowadays, they're much more advanced in technology and don't have patience for that sort of thing. But direct or in-person contact, it still means something.
And some senators have events in their own districts, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it depends on the senator, but some have like open coffees or things like that.
In town halls, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yes, some of them do. They engage with the public at different meetings when they're at home. And I always tell people in other parts of the state, not Lincoln and Omaha, but your senator comes home for the weekend. Mm-hmm. There are recess days. Reach out to them while they're at home. You don't have to come to Lincoln. Mm. You can engage your senator in your district. That's their own backyard. Mm. And it's a good opportunity to show them or tell them about what you're working on and to tell them what's happening at home. Mm-hmm. So that's another tactic. You don't have to come to Lincoln. Just ask their offices when they're going to be home.
Mm-hmm. So if you were to give folks who are going to go testify or have coffee with their legislator or whatnot some tips and tricks, what would you say? What would you advise?
Prepare your testimony, prepare your comments, write them out. If you can leave a copy, even if it's just talking points, it's great to leave a copy of some information with the senator or to hand out at the hearings. The more simple the document, one page, bullet points, the more effective it will be and the more likely that the senator will look at it. Address the senators formally. Just try to use proper manners in the usual channels of reaching out, and just be prepared and don't try not to be defensive and disrespectful. There was a lot of disrespect shown to senators because it was so emotional at some hearings. But you don't yell. You don't call them names. This is just a general rule of thumb. You don't throw things from the balconies, and just treat them how you would want to be treated. But come prepared.
Yeah.
Yes. No, learn how to say your senator's name correctly.
Oh yes, that's probably a really important one. Yes, and let them say it so you know how they say it.
Yes, yes.
Well, those are all really good suggestions. As we wrap up here, I want to circle back to kind of the beginning of our conversation about specifically the resolution that's been worked on. What are the next steps as far as that's concerned? What do we need to know as we get ready for session?
Well, today and tomorrow, the whole legislative body with the speaker are meeting in what they call the Legislative Council, where they are probably right now talking about the suggestions that Speaker Arch will have for rules changes, as well as Senator Erdman, who is chair of the Rules Committee. He has a slate of suggestions for rules changes that would address a lot of what happened last session with the filibuster. They're talking about, I understand that they don't necessarily agree with all of the changes the other is suggesting. So I think it depends on how those discussions turn out and what Senator Arch can get buy-in for his ideas. Once he determines how he's going to go forward, he'll schedule a call with the organizations that submitted or responded to his surveys. And then those organizations, we plan to set up a webinar or a call so that we can let everyone know, here's what's coming, here's the plan, here's what didn't go, and we'll remain collaborative and try to give the public as much information as possible on what to expect.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And thank you for taking the time to meet with us today and
Thanks.
share some information. You're always such a wealth of knowledge. I love anytime I get to chat with you, and I love that other people get to experience it too. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
So, as always, we encourage you to get involved. Go ahead and check out who your senator is. Get in touch with them now. And again, I want to thank Laurie for her time speaking with us today. For the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha, I'm Rachel Gibson, reminding you to inform yourself about issues and candidates and be ready to go vote Omaha.